Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned for my weekly reading report. It's time for my weekly reading report, that fantastic program where I talk about all the exciting stuff I read during the previous week and other exciting things. And there is another exciting thing to talk about this week. Let's talk about the exciting thing, Roger. So, this dumb channel was nominated for an award, actually a couple of awards, for the Robert E. Howard Awards 2025. Roger and I got nominated for a couple of those, and that's thrilling. So the Robert E. Howard Awards are run by the Robert E. Howard Foundation, those fine folks who come out with so many great books. And so that's pretty cool. It's true, I had to get Roger to use his black magic to influence the nomination, but I'm not above using black magic, Roger, if it means I get nominated for awards. That's really the only way I could have got nominated. So thanks, Roger, for that. I don't think even Roger's black magic though could make me win because there are some pretty great nominees, including Stygian Dogs, a fantastic YouTube channel, which if you like Robert E. Howard, you definitely need to watch Stygian Dogs if you don't already. I'll link that channel down below. Stygian Dogs should win because they're actually awesome. But we'll see. Roger, break out that Necronomicon and maybe that might influence the judges. You never know. So the winners will be announced this year at Robert E. Howard Days in Cross Plains, Texas. So that'll be exciting. We'll see how that goes. But thank you for nominating me. I think that's wonderful. That's great, Roger. So yeah, there's that. And now let's talk about the stuff that I read. The first thing I want to talk about is a Robert E. Howard kind of thing. Savage Sword of Conan, the Savage Sword of Conan, issue number 7. I want to definitely talk about this one. So I have been keeping up with the new Savage Sword of Conan magazine being published by Titan Comics and Heroic Signature. I've been pretty happy with the new Savage Sword of Conan. Up to issue 7 now. I really enjoyed the previous 6 issues. Up to this point, my favorite issue was the second one because it had a really good Jim Zub story in it, Leaving the Garden, with art by Richard Page. That was great. So issue number 2 was awesome. But now we have issue number 7 available, and this is a fantastic issue of Savage Sword of Conan. Just great. It's probably the best issue of Savage Sword of Conan since the 1970s. It's that good. And it's that good because the main story in it was written by Roy Thomas. So Roy Thomas, the great comic book writer, the legendary comic book writer who brought Conan to comic books back in the 1970s for Marvel. He wrote over 100 issues of Conan the Barbarian and a whole lot of stories for Savage Sword of Conan. It was a fabulous time for Conan and Robert E. Howard, as it is again today. And this issue was just fantastic. Art by Roberto Della Torre, probably the best, or at least my favorite Conan artist working right now on the new Conan comics. He's incredible, and the artwork in this issue is incredibly good. It's great. It's a great issue. Fantastic story by Roy Thomas. He's just as good as he ever was. And to make it even better, there's a backup story featuring Breckenridge Elkins, another great Robert E. Howard character, a Western character, humorous Western character that you don't hear talked about as much as his other characters. And I certainly don't think I've ever seen a comic book story featuring Breckenridge Elkins. At least if there has been one, I can't remember it. But this one was really good in this issue. So yeah, Savage Sword of Conan, issue number 7. You should get it because it's fantastic. Just an amazing issue. So there's that. I did finish a book this week. So let's break out my list for the 500 book challenge. The challenge where I have to read 500 books that I own before I'll buy any new ones. The never-ending challenge continues. So we're at book on the challenge. We're at book number 224. I finished book 224. And that was this big book, Justice League Omnibus, Volume 1, which was republished as the Silver Age Justice League Omnibus, Volume 1. And it was, of course, wonderful. All the stories in here were written by Gardner Fox. The artwork was by Mike Sekowsky, and it was glorious. It took me a while to finish it, but it was absolutely fantastic. I love the Justice League in the Silver Age, and this was tremendously fun. Great stories by Gardner Fox. Gardner Fox would write these stories, and they were very dense stories, just full of all kinds of stuff. You know, Gardner Fox was interested in all kinds of things. He was very into science, not just science fiction, but science and history and everything else. And he had a million ideas in his head that he would put into his comic book stories. And he would write very complex, very clever comic book stories. Usually he would break the Justice League up into different teams that would have to go and battle different menaces at the same time. So you would have, like, you know, Wonder Woman and the Martian Manhunter go off and fight something or do something, complete some mission, and then, you know, the Flash and Green Lantern and maybe Batman would go someplace else. It was a good time. It was odd because, you know, these are the first Justice League stories, and the one odd thing was that Superman and Batman, the most popular DC characters then as now, didn't usually play a big part in the earlier issues, and they were almost never on the covers. For example, in the first Justice League story, you'll see all the other members of the Justice League, but no Batman and Superman. And very often in those early stories, Batman and Superman would be, you know, busy doing other things and just couldn't make it to whatever thing the Justice League had to do. And if I'm remembering right, somebody else will know better than me, but if I'm remembering right, that had to do with the editors of the Batman books and the editors of the Superman books not wanting the Justice League to play a big part, or for them to play a big part in the Justice League. And I'm not sure why that was. There was some sort of, they were being very territorial, I think, for their characters, because it doesn't make any sense to not put your most popular characters front and center in the Justice League, because you want the book to sell, and it did sell really well, but you'd think it would sell even better if, like, you know, Superman and Batman were on the covers, you know, and played bigger parts in the story. Eventually they figured this out, because by the latter half of the Silver Age, yeah, Batman and Superman were all over those stories. But they were great stories all along. Mike Sekowsky did the artwork on, I think, all of the Silver Age stuff. And I like Sekowsky a lot. He was a really good, solid artist. His anatomy could be a bit wonky. He did improve over time. I mean, his artwork was good, Silver Age artwork, and it got better, but it always stayed a little weird. His anatomy was always a little wonky. His characters, his superhero characters, all very much looked like people in tights. You know, like his Batman was a very Adam West looking Batman. He probably drew the most Adam West looking Batman of all comic books. it's tremendous fun. This is tremendous fun. So I finished this and had a great time with it. And so now moving on to the second Justice League Silver Age Omnibus. Well, you got something to say, Rhonda? Oh, I'm sorry. Is somebody walking by? We can't have that. We can't have people just walking by in front of the manor. Rhonda's always there to keep tabs of things. What else did I read? Well, of course, I'm also reading the Fantastic Four. Hey, I'm trying to do a program over here. Rhonda has no respect. Anyway, I'm also reading the Fantastic Four. Every issue of the Fantastic Four from the first run of the Fantastic Four, which ran from 1961 to 1996. And I am at an interesting period of the Fantastic Four, 1980. So the 70s are over. And I am at issue 226. That's this issue here. And this is where the Fantastic Four have to face the Samurai Destroyer. This is very much the era of the Shogun Warriors. The Shogun Warrior toys, the big robot toys. And so we have a character very much like that here on this issue of the Fantastic Four. And this is the period where the art is by Sienkiewicz, and Doug Mensch is the writer. And this has not been my favorite team on this book. It's odd because I love them both on Moon Knight, on the Moon Knight comic of this era. And Doug Mensch is pretty good as a writer, but Sienkiewicz, his art is just a little weird for the Fantastic Four. And it kind of stands out a bit more than, like, his anatomy is always strange. His character's anatomy is always strange. And you don't notice that so much in Moon Knight as you do here with the Fantastic Four. Everything just looks a little odd. The artwork does look a little rushed. So not his best work, I don't think, his run on the Fantastic Four, at least so far. So far. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's just not as good as all the other artists who've worked so far on this book. And like I said, I love his Moon Knight, but here, we'll see. It is going to be followed up shortly by John Byrne, though, so that'll be awesome. But still reading Fantastic Four. But the big thing, of course, that I'm reading is this, Stephen King's It. And surprise, surprise, I'm not finished with this book yet. It's probably going to be a while before I finish it. So where am I? It'll be like another couple of weeks, I think. I am at page 450. I'm on page 450. And this is, how many, was it 1,100 pages? Yeah, it's a 1,100 page book. So this is a very long novel. So far, I'm really enjoying it. So I did read this once before when I was 15 years old. Right after it came out, I got a hardcover of it and read it. I did have mixed feelings about it, I remember. But I'm realizing I don't remember anything that happened in this book aside from the basic plot, which is that some kids run into a shape-shifting monster that usually looks like a clown. And then they come back as adults to fight it again. I remembered that. But as I'm reading this, it's like, I don't remember any of this. I don't remember, for example, how they finally defeat the monster. I'm assuming they do. But I remember one scene in particular. There's one scene I remember from this book because it traumatized me. But most of what happens in this book, I just had no memory of. And so I'm reading all of it, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. That's kind of cool. And I'm surprised at how good it is. And I shouldn't be, because I've read a bunch of Stephen King books up to now, and they've all been better than I remember them being. And the same goes for this one. This one is really good for the most part. Excellent character work. I mean, the characters are great. Stephen King is really good at writing about kids, because I feel like he remembers what it was like to be a kid who was hanging out with his friends. I remember when I was a kid and I was hanging out with my friends, and this book gets those kind of relationships and how kids talk to each other and all that stuff. He gets that right. And so all that stuff is great. And it does have a terrifying opening, just a fantastic opening of this book, introducing the monster. The monster, there are some scenes in here. Okay, so this monster kills kids. You know, this monster goes on a kid killing spree. And our main characters, though, when they run into the monster, they all manage to get away from him. And I kind of feel like they shouldn't. You know, like there are a couple scenes where the kids get away from the monster, and they really shouldn't have. So is he letting them get away? Is he, so there's that. And yeah, so we'll see how it all works out. And the monster is a shape-shifting, gross, horrific monster, which is pretty frightening for the most part. But like I said, it's like, why are these kids still alive? You know, why aren't they all just dead? I mean, if this monster can do what it's been doing, and it has no problem killing all the other kids, but our main characters, they just get away from him. So we'll see how that all turns out. But so far, I've been enjoying it. So far, it's been, like I said, 450 pages, but it hasn't dragged at all. I don't think. I found everything to be entertaining up to this point. Very compelling reading. So I want to knock this out, though, within the next couple weeks, because there's other stuff I want to read this month. The King of Elfland's Daughter for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. I've got a vintage science fiction book I've got to read. I've got a Doc Savage I've got to read. I've got a Western I've got to read. And so I've got other stuff I need to get to. But I'm only this far in this book, so I'm really going to have to read a lot more of this, but it's fantastic. Unfortunately, I'm really, really busy right now. Like this week coming up, my schedule has changed for the week, and it'll make it more challenging, not impossible, because I don't have to sleep every night, right, Roger? I don't have to sleep every night. I could just not sleep. I could just read this book. And we'll see. We'll see how it all turns out. Stephen King, you know how his endings can be. He does have good endings once in a while. Pet Sematary, great ending. Really, really great ending. But sometimes it can be a little... We'll see how this one is. So far, so good for it. So, yeah. I think that's everything. You got anything to add? No. How unusual. Okay, guys. We'll catch you next time.